Welcome to Shit You Wish Your Building Did, the must-watch show for understanding how technology can transform your commercial buildings. Today, we're diving into the world of smart building projects with Tomás Mac Eoin from Hereworks, exploring his concept called Swift HR. Swift HR envisions a cross-functional team led by human resources with the agility to quickly respond to and manage smart building insights. Join us for this insightful conversation with Tomás. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest episodes. You ready to transform your building with smart technology? Let's jump right in. Tomás, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, James.
Of course. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about Hereworks to kick off.
Yeah, so Hereworks was born in, 2007, and we were originally a commercial audiovisual integrator. And my own background, I'm a background in telecoms and IP networks. So we kind of, from the get-go, we embraced AV over IP. We're part of a larger construction group called Mac Eoin Group. And we have, within that group, we have a construction group and we have a mechanical and electrical services division. And as we progressed through the years and grew as a contractor, we started doing a lot of, automating everything from obviously lighting systems, HVAC systems, and we got more and more then into smart building technologies like space analytics systems, etc.
Yep.
And before we realized it, we had become what everyone now knows, or most people know now, as a Master Systems Integrator. We didn't realize it at the time, but that's what we had become. So we were handling a lot of data that comes from buildings in general. We were collating it and then using it for I suppose, generating insights on what's going on in the building and how to better manage those buildings. So now we would describe ourselves as a Master Systems Integrator, or Smart Building Integrator. More.
Perfect. I know you have lots of experience working on projects. So I brought you on today because we're going to talk about this concept that you've developed called Swift HR.
Yeah.
But I thought a good starting point, was to first sort of frame it, right, as some of the fundamentals about what you've been seeing within your work. And, when I've heard you talk, you've talked about the responsibility for translating smart building data into actual actionable insights within an organization, right? Super important. So currently, how does that tend to work within an organization? Is there one particular, entity that is responsible for that?
Well, I suppose first of all, I'd say we're Hereworks. Our similar companies are responsible for actually generating the insights from the data. The question, I suppose, is within organizations who can actually action those insights.
Right.
And usually, and I think this is fairly common across the industry. We're commissioned by either the facility management people, or by real estate, and they're the ones who kind of want a smart building. And they hire us, and it's all very exciting at the start, and we install a lot of technologies. But time and time again, we find that sometimes the insights we generate after go live are not actioned. It depends on the organization who's actually responsible. But generally, because facilities or real estate have commissioned us, they're the ones who will kind of look at the insights. And a lot of the insights we generate are around humans and around people and how people interact with the building. And they're the ones in particular that aren't actioned. So I suppose if we're generating insights around energy, or we're generating insights around space utilization, they generally get fairly well actioned by the likes of real estate and facilities. But some of the most valuable insights are around the humans and how they interact with the building. And it kind of falls between two stools, and nobody's really responsible. I have lots of examples.
Yes, no, I'd love to hear an example. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah. So in one and again, this is a kind of a recurring theme. We had a building here in Dublin, and we found that a particular room type was being over occupied. And the problem that was causing was very, very high levels of CO2, up into kind of 2,500, approaching 3,000 parts per million, which is beyond the stage where you'd be feeling tired. It could actually make you sick. And this was going on for 3 or 4 hours. And when we investigated more, and we looked at the booking data, we found out that it was a training session. It was happening on consecutive days, repeatedly across the building. And when we looked into it, we found out that actually there was 27 people in that room, and the room had only ever been designed for 15 people. So we also knew that there was plenty of bigger rooms available in the building. So the simple fix was to book a different room.
Yeah. Now,
we had been commissioned by facilities in that case, and they didn't have a direct link with workplace managers or with HR to kind of change those habits. And that seems really, really simple. But that problem went on for months. In fact, it may still be going on. And what it required was a zero cost bit of training of actually if you're booking this size of an event, please use this type of room. So that's a very blunt example of kind of what goes on. So what we found is that no matter what project we get involved in, we rarely see human resources or anyone from HR at the smart building table, let's call it. And that to me is a I suppose a glaring omission. I'm sure, James, you're more than familiar with JLL's 330-300 rule. So for every $3 you spend on energy, you spend 30 on rent and 300 on people.
Yep.
So that's where the value is in the people. Yet a lot of our time in the smart building world is spent on the first two, on the energy and the real estate. Which, energy, obviously, we obviously have a lot of targets to meet for 2030 and beyond. And it's a very noble pursuit. But my argument would be that actually, if we focus on the human, we'll actually get everything else right, because we'll improve well-being, obviously. So now we have a more productive workforce. We're only designing spaces for how people use it. So we're reducing the real estate costs, and we're only, setting up these facilities for when there's people there and how they use it. So we're going to save on energy, we're going to save on waste, and how we clean and how we maintain the facilities as well. So I suppose that's our mantra at Hereworks, is really focus on the human and we'll get everything else right. Now, HR are all about the human. Facilities, yes, they do see themselves as being responsible for well-being, but they're quite disconnected really from, now I'm talking in office environments, by the way, and I should have said that from the start. I'm really talking about office buildings here rather than industrial or buildings. But it is HR that are most connected. They understand the sentiment of people, what people want, and they're generally fairly senior in an organization, so they can actually implement change.
Okay. So that's a perfect segue then into what you have called the Swift HR approach, right? So this concept, could you describe, so obviously we've described the problem and how HR is disconnected. So this concept is bringing them into the conversation about smart buildings.
Yeah, and I suppose it's probably worth mentioning first who is at the smart building table. And as we've already said, we'll have facilities, we'll have real estate. We sometimes have workplace safety teams. We'll have IT there, and we'll obviously have the technology as well as part of the smart building. So the idea of Swift HR, by the way, it's an acronym. So S is safety, W is workplace, I is IT, F is facilities, T is technology, H then is human resources, and R is real estate. So Swift HR, the idea is that we reimagine how we actually manage modern office buildings. Because at the moment we rely on kind of traditional facility management contracts where there's really no room for proactivity around the insights that are coming from our smart building technologies. Because, you know, it's all about efficiencies, it's all about reducing costs, and everyone is rewarded on reducing costs. So we've written these contracts, we've kind of tied the hands of the facility managers and put in these buildings because there just is no room for proactivity. So Swift HR it's not just a new team, it's rethinking how we actually manage these buildings and how we write these facility management contracts going forward. But the idea is that it's a cross-functional team. It includes all of those different disciplines. But my argument is that actually the people who should lead that team are the HR team. Because as I mentioned, they're the ones that are really connected to the people, and therefore the highest return on investment from any of these technologies. Everything about it is positive because we're improving well-being. But with my shareholders hat on, I'm also improving productivity, because all the research, like this countless research, shows that actually if you focus on well-being, you'll increase productivity. If you do the opposite, if you focus on productivity, you'll actually reduce well-being. So it's a win-win for any organization.
Very interesting. And in the current sort of state of play, as you said, like a lot of this either gets managed by some workplace. Well, it's generally within facilities, right? But do you think that is responsible perhaps for like not great outcomes as well, because they're just not really, they don't have the same incentive structure to, promote these ideas or really push forward this agenda? They're too focused on cost and too focused on like managing resources.
Yeah, I mean, and that is it. That's the way we've written. And I've been at the other side of this table as well, where I've actually been, bidding for facility management contracts. And like, it's all about it is such a low margin industry. It's all about just getting the most, sweating that asset, i.e. the HR manager, to do the most, and then trying to year on year make efficiencies by, maybe it's by energy saving, but like we could have a very efficient building if we had nobody in it.
Yeah, absolutely. The most efficient building is the one that's never built.
Yeah. So I think it's really down to how we've written those contracts, and it really, it's a cutthroat industry, and it's all about low cost.
Yeah.
And at what expense? And there's always this big excitement, with a capital budget when a building's being built, and there's millions involved, and everyone wants to be at that table. And then the building's built and suddenly it's handed over. And now all that excitement and all the hard work and expense that went into putting in these systems, and we're not leveraging it to its maximum capacity.
No, absolutely. And there's lots of examples, aren't there, where that handover phase is really, almost a very much a line in the sand, where those that have worked on the building walk away and go on to the next project, and someone is left to operate the building who has had nothing to do with the actual design and construction of it. And a lot of all that knowledge that went into building it just goes somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, if you look as well at even commissioning, and we still, and I think this is a problem worldwide, as much in Ireland and the UK as it is in the States and beyond. This final commissioning of a building always takes much longer than expected, and often is never finished. And then exactly that happens as well. You pass over then to a different team, and suddenly, the final commissioning is never finished. And actually, again, that's where smart building technologies, like fault detection and diagnostic and that kind of thing, can really help to, make that transition a bit more seamless. And even when commissioning is done right, It can be right for 1 year, and then a year later, it's never looked at again, and things are overridden and whatever. So again, a huge place for smart building technologies to start to, spot these insights, spot the anomalies, and the trend changes that happen when things fall out of commission.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of the key elements you described to me as well about Swift HR is this integrating human feedback as well into the data layer of smart building systems. So again, like, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. How would that be achieved?
Yeah, and again, putting the Hereworks mantra on about focusing on the human. So we're handling all this data from the building, whether it be internal, sensor data, temperatures, CO2 levels. We also bring in things like the weather, external weather outside. We bring in people counting, bring all this data around the building. But again, what if we brought in the human data as well? So when I talk about human data, what I mean is sentiment analysis. Again, something that HR, the realm that HR are in. So, are people satisfied with their building? Are they satisfied with their comfort, with their workplace? When we do those surveys, whether they're a pulse survey, maybe they're done once every 2 weeks, and we ask a question about, their comfort levels. Why not bring, or we ask it randomly at random times, why not bring that data into the data lake as well? And now we can compare it to what the building data is saying. And then we'll start to see actual trends. And there's a couple of things we can do with that. Obviously, we can use it to generate insights, but we can also use it to train the building as to what is optimal. We're actually working on a project at the moment with one university, Dublin City University in Dublin at the moment, where we're looking at, we have this concept of a happy score in Hereworks, and our happy, so we generate any buildings that we onboard onto our Hereworks Happy platform. We generate a happy score for it, and the idea is that it's a simple score that represents how well the building is meeting the needs of its occupants. 0 is bad, 100 is good, and while we may never achieve 100, we're looking at trends here. But the idea is that you've got all this big data, all the data that I mentioned there a minute ago, but it's very hard for a human to understand it. So we simplify it into one score. But now, by bringing in the human data into that data lake, we can start to train a piece of AI to generate the happy score based on what the people are telling us, what the building is telling us, and then we can use that data to configure our BMS systems, to actually set our BMS systems to what is comfortable, or to encourage our HR people to provide more desks over there, or to bring more staff into the canteen. The other type of human data we bring in is ticketing. So within, again, Hereworks Happy, we have something called Hereworks Solve, which is a smart ticketing system. We put these kind of smart asset tags, and they're basically location aware, and we put them on anything from coffee machines to desks, and it allows people to report a problem with those assets within 5 seconds. The idea being that you get more problems reported, the things that are really, really bugging people around the building, and that never really get reported, or if they do, it's not through an official channel. And again, by bringing that in to the data lake in the normalized way, now we know actually, okay, what's happening in that office right now? What desks are working? What desks aren't working? What problems are people having? And you're just making this much richer, human-focused data lake, which can generate insights to help those people who manage the building to improve that experience. And a lot of people ask, well, we're going to get so many problems reported. That's the idea. And the idea, like where we've rolled this out, you get an influx of problems in the first few weeks, but then you start to see the trends. You get to the root cause of the problem, and then those tickets fall off, and then you move on to the next thing and the less more important thing. You see all these trends all the time, but you're all the time making iterative improvements to the human experience. And being able to see that in the same realm as the building data is hugely powerful.
Yeah, I can see that. And I suppose you quite quickly work out what's important to people, right? What's when there is a problem, or when problems repeat as well, right? With a specific bit of equipment. Okay, so we need to focus
Yeah, and
our
that's it. Like
attention.
we're not just going to fix the problem. We're going to find the root cause of
Yeah.
the problem.
Okay.
Like one of the most common problems, you probably know this from your own work in life, is I'm too hot, I'm too cold. That's the most common problem that any facility manager receives. But by actually able to see exactly where that person was when they were reporting that, and compare it to the nearest sensor to them, you can start to see, well, actually, maybe something wrong with that sensor, or maybe they are just prima donnas now. Just perfectly comfortable. You can't please everyone. Or you could possibly send them to a part of the building where they'll be comfortable, because we're all a bit different, and that's acceptable.
No, good point. And you mentioned that this kind of stuff, you're doing this already, right? You're implementing this technology. And are you introducing Swift HR into your conversations you're having with clients? Like what
we talk about it a lot. We talk about it a lot. I suppose we've only really coined it that name there maybe 6 months ago. But we have talked a lot about having HR at the table. I'm not saying we have great success in it. And there's a reluctance in some organizations. Like some organizations, real estate actually report to finance, and some organizations, real estate actually do report in to HR.
Okay.
They're the most progressive companies, without a doubt, in terms of kind of moving to, I suppose, what we call Swift HR, and are more willing to bring in workplace managers to the smart building table.
Because they already kind of understand there's a link there between the workplace and human resources.
Yeah. And, companies are very, very different. Even in the tech world, like a lot of our companies are kind of in the big tech world, the finance world. And within those sectors, each company has a slightly different view on what's important. And we lead with different technologies depending on what. Like some people are just really, really focused on sweating the plant, making it the most efficient as possible. And then some are really focused on the human. And we've a different tool chest depending on what the customer is really focused on themselves. But I definitely think, you hear a lot of people, particularly we do a bit of work with the public sector, and there's a fear of what AI might bring, and what machine learning might bring, and is this going to, you hear this, is this going to replace my job? There's no fear of that until we actually change how towards something like Swift HR, and that's what we have to do. We have to let the technology do its job, garner the insights, and then we need the humans to make the change, and to change, to become, more concierge type facility manager than being, focused on the plant, because the technology will look after the plant. So let's, embrace this change, to I suppose to really leverage AI and all the benefits that can bring to a modern building.
Yeah, it also just occurred to me, of course, that human resources have all of that information, not just about individuals, but for example, their how often people are sick, how often they're in the office or work from home or whatever. And I mean, that would be really interesting, wouldn't it, to be able to correlate sick leave against building performance, and see if you can bring that number down, the number of sick days, by improving the environment.
Yeah, and staff retention.
Exactly.
Which is a huge thing nowadays.
Yes, good point. So, what are your plans then? With obviously you're taking this to clients now within your business. I mean, is Swift HR something you want to also develop as a concept within the industry that other people can use?
I think it's a bit of, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's not, we're not claiming it or trademarking it, and we're encouraging it, I suppose. So the more, and funny, I seen it, I can't remember who it was this morning. There was a post on LinkedIn, and I replied, but more and more there is a shift in the industry to talk about wellness and looking after humans in the smart building industry. So there is a bit of a shift, I think, happening, albeit slowly. But yeah, it's really to get, we often wonder, we speak at a lot of smart building events. Met you at the smart building conference in Barcelona earlier this year. But we wonder, should we really be speaking at workplace conferences? Should we because we're kind of speaking to the converted sometimes in the smart building world. So it's really to get this message through to, is it the building owners? Is it the asset owners? Is it the owner occupiers? Is it the occupiers of these buildings? Because that's where the change has to come from. They're the people who hire, the real estate companies and facility companies. And I suppose we need to, it's a bit of an education journey, isn't it? We need to bring them along the journey. But absolutely would encourage anyone, I have a couple of slides here as well. I can send on to you if you want to share.
Yes, thank you.
On the concept, but
we'll include those in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Good. Look, thank you very much. It was really interesting to chat through that with you. I think it's as a concept, I think it makes so much sense. I mean, is there, last question to you, if there's one thing that you want people to take away from this conversation today, what would it be?
It has to be our own mantra. Focus on the human, and we'll get everything else right. And that's we really believe that. And focusing just on the narrow of energy, I just think it's too low level nowadays for what the technology is capable of.
Yeah.
Certainly in an office environment. So focus on the human, and we'll get everything else right.
Perfect. Thomas, thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, James. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.